Hello, everyone. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast, PR maven, food writer, food stylist, and as many of you know that have been on the show, a frustrated baker. I want to talk about our sponsor today, which is Amatis Recovery Centers. Amatis Recovery Centers offers premier treatment for drug and alcohol addiction and co-occurring mental health disorders in facilities across the country. To learn more about treatment programs, call 833 631 0525. Addiction is treatable and recovery is possible. Today's guest is Nancy Hart Trice, co-owner, restaurateur of Gunther Company restaurant here in Baltimore, down in Canton Hash, Brewers Hill. Nancy is a native Baltimorean who started as a chef. Her CV reads being the executive chef at Lincoln Center, to working with Eli Zabor in his vinegar factory in Manhattan, to general manager and partner in Silver Spring at 8407 Kitchen. She eventually came back to Baltimore with her husband, Jerry, who is a chef, and for Gunther and Company. And we're going to talk with them. The space is beautiful. There is Nancy. Hi, Nancy.
Hello. Hi, Dara. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, my pleasure. What's cooking at Gunther and Company today?
Well, finally, we're cooking. Yes. We are reopening tonight. We're very excited. We've kind of had the end of summer meets some fall ingredients entering our menu for tonight and for the weekend. We got in some beautiful Black Mission figs. It was touch and go with the figs for the weekend. We got them. We're very happy. We're doing a burrata dish with those. We have, what else? Our lobster roll, our very famous Maine lobster roll, just delivered from Maine. I have to say the meat is sweeter than I remember. So happy to have such good ingredients to share with Baltimore. Very excited to open tonight.
So the restaurant, interior, exterior, is open at 50%?
Yes. Yes, which is a good thing because it's not looking so great for the weather today. We have added a whole row of umbrellas to create as much shade as possible so we can open for brunch. We do have brunch Saturday and Sunday this weekend. The sun's peeking out. We'll see what happens. You never know. This has been the year of it's going to rain and it doesn't, and it's not and it does. So we're on standby for the patio, but yes, we do have our main dining room open. I have to say our guests who don't eat out right now or haven't been eating out before we close would come and say, you know what, I feel safe. I have this big banquette around me. I have 32 feet of clear story. I have a living wall next to me. So we're doing our best to create a safe environment for, our guests and of course our staff. They're our family.
I know, we talked about that earlier. If people haven't been to Gunther, I want to let them know that there is free parking there for Gunther. So
Yes.
Feel comfortable with that. You don't have to worry, am I riding around the block? Am I going into a parking lot? I mean, I had to run downtown yesterday, down to Fells Point, and I rode around the block 4 times, parked, paid $1 with the credit card, picked up what I needed, and was back in my car in 2 minutes. So it's lovely to be able to have that free parking opportunity. And if you have not been to Gunther, the space is beautiful. And it took you 2 years. Tell people more about what went into opening Gunther and what facilities you have. You talked about the living wall. Let's tackle that first.
Okay.
Explain to people what a living wall is.
Okay, so we'll talk about the living wall first. Our inside living wall is 16 feet tall, so it's a big predominant feature in our main dining room. It is an active air system, so they're individual pots which get watered 2 or 3 times a week, depending on the temperature and humidity. And each plant gets watered through this wick. This wick continually pushes air over the root system of each plant. So when you're pushing air over the root system of a plant, it's magnified, its filtering powers many times. We had to replant the living wall about 2 years ago because they used organic soil. And basically the wall was so healthy that the roots couldn't survive. They had to use less organic soil when they replanted. So I really do feel like it's a health benefit. Forget COVID. That's just in general. I love having the wall. I love having a living thing here. At 8407, which you had mentioned, my restaurant in Silver Spring, I always was questioned on why we had painted. We had very few walls there. We had a lot of old brick like we do in this building. But I had picked this very bright green, and everyone would ask me why. And I said, you know, do you remember the first spring day when you look up in the trees and you see the sun shining through? It's that beautiful, vivid green live color. It's very important, I think, in a restaurant to have that live feature, and here being able to have live plants was important to myself and Jerry, my husband. We had the idea at the exact same time. We were talking to each other on the phone. He's like, no, listen to me. And I'm like, no, listen to me. It was very funny. I can tell you the day, the time, the place, because he was doing something, I was doing something. And we always joke about who said it first. But it doesn't matter. We're really happy to have a great living wall here. Green Street Growers does a great job maintaining it, and also our exterior walls, which are pollinating plants and herbs. And we are able to use the herbs in cocktails and in the kitchen too, ice creams and things like that. So designing and building the space, that's a whole story, Dara. Called you Tara. Tara's the server who just left us. I'm sorry. She's on my mind this morning. She sent me a message wishing us good luck today. It took us a long time to finalize the lease, figure out, you know, if we were the right fit for the landlord. They had interviewed basically every restaurateur in town to have this restaurant in this space. They've invested, you know, almost 20 years now on building Brewers Hill. So it was important that they had the right people to do it. So that took time to develop that relationship. It took time to figure out the patio and how that was going to work, having apartments here. Obviously, the people that rent those apartments are who we want to come. So we needed to figure out how to make that all happen. And then this space, I make people laugh every time I tell them this, was a completely raw space. It was wet. There was rain coming in. We had pigeons, some alive, some dead. Our landlord had put in all new windows, and he had brought all of the utilities into the basement, but nothing was run. There was one cord for lights to see from one end of the building to the other. We knew within 2 weeks exactly how everything would lay out here. We knew Jerry needed an open kitchen. We knew we wanted to have this wonderful chef's counter where people could interact and he could interact with them. I, as you mentioned, started as a chef cooking. Actually, as a cook at the Gourmet Shop in Pikesville. There's a nod out to the old hometown. Yes, I worked for the Pressmans back in the 80s when I was in high school. Yes, and then when I moved downtown for college, I went to Micah. I started working at a restaurant in Harbor Place. That was bought by Restaurant Associates, which is how I ended up moving to New York with them and became the executive chef at Lincoln Center. So anyway, back to it all. So we knew that, you know, we have an understanding between the two of us. I don't even want to add up how many years of experience. We're over 70. So let's just say
You started when you were 2.
Yeah.
You started when you were 2.
Sounds good. That sounds good.
Is that good? Is that good?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. So we knew we wanted to have an open kitchen. We wanted to have that interaction. We knew function was important to us. We knew design had to look good. People had to feel comfortable. Every chair Jerry sat in, I sat in. I'm 5 something and he's 6 something. So we wanted to make sure it was comfortable for our guests. Every fork, every plate, we really put a personal touch on this restaurant. And I think that it helped us attract the right staff, and we came very quickly into having a wonderful culture with our staff. And that's what I think, even in the beginning when we maybe fumbled and didn't do things perfectly, guests would say to me, you know, the food was wonderful and your staff, they're smiling, they're happy. You guys are doing a great job. You know, we really see everyone even the cooks, they're smiling. Everyone's having a good time here. And that's super important, I think, to creating a successful restaurant.
Well, your restaurant is 7,000 square feet, so
Something
huge,
like that. Yeah.
something like that. So
Yeah.
there is a bar area, and where maybe the locals feel like coming in, and then you come into what's it, a 35-foot ceiling
32.
room,
Yeah. Yeah. With the
32,
clear,
and
yeah, with the clear story. So it's that old kind of beautiful roof
right,
line.
brick. There's no, didn't you
Hmm.
say that there was no paint? Everything was planned, everything was ergonomic.
Yes, every surface was meant to last. We had the beautiful Baltimore brick, which we love and we embraced. Of course, why would we want to cover it? We had to fight actually because of building regulations and things changing. Our landlord helped us because our building is historic, because they want you to insulate things, but the brick insulates at a better rate. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So yes, we kept all the brick and we finished surfaces with steel, with roof barn tin, with old barn wood, with beadboard to create the warmth. You can see behind me, there's the old beautiful barn wood that's been installed and sealed.
That's
So
in the
everything is
private
sealed and
dining.
happy. Yes,
Yeah,
as
that's in
I
the
mentioned
private
earlier, this is
dining
our
room.
very sad private dining room. I'm getting so many requests. People are saying, can I bring 14 people or 10 people or 12 people? And I'm like, the regulations say our largest table is 6 people still. So it's a little sad. It's the only place I could close the door in the building. So that's why I'm in here. I was hoping to give you guys a shot of the living wall, but there's just too much sunlight flooding in between the rain clouds today. So didn't get a chance
Right,
to do that.
it would wash it out. Look, if you haven't been, go to Gunther. See it in
Please.
person. See it live,
Yes.
right?
Live
And
action.
before I forget, if you're just tuning in now, we're here with Nancy Hart Trice, Baltimorean come home after travels to New York and D.C. The restaurant website is Eat at Gunther. Social media, Eat at Gunther. This is not hard to forget, everybody. Everything, Twitter, Eat at Gunther. They're at 3650 Toon Street in Brewers Hill, free parking. Um, let's talk about the food. Jerry grew up
Yes,
in Virginia, and his
he did.
grandfather came from the Depression era. So he taught Jerry to can, to hunt, to fish. So even as a young boy, before farm to table came to be, this is how he grew up. And your food, I've been there. He likes to do a number of things with Asian inspiration,
Hmm.
some things from New Orleans. The cuisine is wonderful. How did you and Jerry meet? Tell me more about that. I'm curious.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, Jerry, as you mentioned, grew up with his grandfather actually living across the street. So he really did go hunting and fishing, and nothing was ever wasted. There was a use for everything. Anything you can imagine you might or might not want to eat, Jerry's pretty much eaten it. I can tell you he has. Maybe only once, but he had to taste everything for sure. And now I forgot my question. Oh, about the food? No. What was your last question, Dara?
I don't
I
know.
forgot your question.
The question is more or less, we were talking about the cuisine and the type of
Oh, right.
food, and I think
Hmm.
your tagline is globally inspired. Um,
Yes.
and
He loves
but
those
it
Asian
is
flavors. Yes. So it's all about the ingredients to him. He always says his job is to take the best ingredients and not mess them up. He's the one chef that I first met that could maybe put one ingredient more in a dish than I thought on paper and still enjoy the dish. He has very good balance of when enough is enough. And yes, the menu is globally inspired, locally spun. So we have different influences from all over. He works with his sous chefs, and they really work off of each other, and they bring their cultures and their love of ingredients to the menu. He is a chef that really wants everybody to have a voice. It's not just his voice. So that really also helps round out our menu. And now I remember the question you asked me. You asked me how Jerry and I met. We used to work together. When I moved back from New York to Baltimore, I didn't have a job. I didn't know anybody. I hadn't really kept in touch. I'd been in New York for 17 years. And every job I would describe to somebody, they'd tell me someone would have to die for me to get that job. And I was like, okay, well, my last job, I managed 100 people. We did big numbers. We did incredible Jewish holidays, to-go food, and that sort of thing. Working with Eli, I got to design menus, products, product lines, packaging. So I was open to do anything. And everybody was like, don't know what we should do with you. So luckily I found Jerry when he was working at Yin Yankee in Annapolis, which was this tiny hole-in-the-wall restaurant where sushi was made. It was about half of the menu, and the other half of the menu was what we call Jerry food, which was totally Asian inspired. And they had plans to expand and open some other restaurants and franchises and things like that. So they brought me in. So I was like, okay, I'll be in this 38-seat restaurant, but then we're going to do all these wonderful things. And not all of that happened, but Jerry and I became best friends. And at the end of the day, years later, we ended up deciding we wanted to be together. So I opened up 8407. Jerry had a food truck in D.C., which was voted one of the top food trucks, along with Jose Andres' Pepe truck back in 2015, I think. And then after we had been together long enough, we decided, okay, we can work together and live together. And then we decided to open Gunther. So that's the short version of that story. Yeah,
that's the 2-year thing. Are you doing, because COVID sort of tied your hands? I didn't know. I know
yes.
On other Jewish holidays you have done things. I don't know if you have any offerings for Rosh Hashanah or break fast.
Yes, we are trying to figure that out. We're opening this week. We were waiting till officially the mayor said Tuesday 50% so we could open. Today's our big push. We've got brunch going and dinner, as I mentioned. Next week, we're launching a deliverable menu. It won't be what you see on our regular menu. It will be a different menu of foods that Jerry feels very comfortable sending home to you, that you will enjoy. Total integrity of product, a delicious meal without having to leave your house. We are looking at seeing if we can get something going for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I know everybody's family doesn't know what to do this year. Mine too. Yes, Rosh Hashanah, we'll do it outside. No Rosh Hashanah, somebody is getting bar mitzvah. Yes, no, yes, no. So I'm not sure if we're going to have a plan together for Rosh Hashanah. We are looking at definitely doing Thanksgiving. And Hanukkah is the meal that we have a big gathering at Gunther. My aunt and uncle come, some of the grandkids, my daughter, if she's available. We light the candles. We have a great Hanukkah menu. I definitely want to make sure we can do those Hanukkah foods to go. I'm usually in the kitchen making potato latkes and matzah balls. Jerry does the brisket, though I have to fight with him not to smoke it every year. So we have fun with that. We bring back my mom's babka, though my mother yells at me because she's like, babka is not our Hanukkah tradition. I'm like, it doesn't matter. We usually have it on break fast for Yom Kippur, but it's a delicious babka and people don't care. Jewish people want Jewish food at all the holidays. It doesn't matter which holiday it is. They just want those great, great foods. They only eat them certain times of the year. So my mother always my aunts give me a hard time too. They're like, matzo balls are just for Passover. I'm like, not in New York. So people eat them. If you make good matzo balls, people are happy to have them.
And it depends if you like floaters or sinkers. There was a whole big discussion on Facebook. Somebody made enormous amounts, and I said, if you want them lighter, if the recipe calls for 1 egg, just add an additional egg. And I said, and it'll be lighter. That started a whole big discussion.
Yes. And don't forget the seltzer water. You have to use seltzer water. And the other trick that I found to having fluffier ones is we always make the mix 24 hours before we make the balls and let it sit completely in the refrigerator overnight. Those are my matzo ball tricks.
Okay. I tried the seltzer. I didn't see any difference, but I
Ah,
refrigerate it for like 30 minutes and then make the matzo ball. So I will try
ah,
that. I will give that
try
a
that and see
shot.
what you think.
Okay. And let people know that you have a fabulous pastry chef there at Gunther. And if you're
We
just
do.
tuning in, go ahead.
Jessica Banner is wonderful. She's been with us for several years now. We make all of our pastry in-house. We have an ice cream machine here too. She just spun all the ice cream sorbet and sherbet for tonight, ready to go. So a lot of our desserts include an ice cream element. And she also makes incredible buttermilk biscuits, which we feature on brunch with homemade jam, ricotta lemon donuts that are served with an espresso caramel sauce. So we have a strong beverage. We have a very strong pastry program here. She also makes birthday cakes for guests who are having events with us, and wedding cakes and things like that. So she's magical. We're lucky to have her on our staff. Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
I One of the interesting things that I saw that you were doing, and this was prior to COVID, that your staff it's treated like family. And in the hospitality industry, health insurance, all these different programs are not available for them. So you have what's called labor love, which is a 3% tiny surcharge on your check. Tell people how this works for your staff.
Sure. So this money goes into a fund. We use this money to help our staff in many ways. We have helped people with dental bills. They needed a tooth pulled. They didn't have money to do it. We've sent people to get tested for the flu last year. So we kept flu out of the restaurant last year. This is just a regular flu. Forget Corona. Correct. I can't speak anymore.
COVID.
Forget COVID. It was really important to us to keep our staff healthy and to be able to help them to do that. So this fund also helps augment people who have insurance through our plan, but they couldn't afford it all on their own. So anybody who wants dental, vision, that this fund pays for it outright. It pays for 50% of other full medical coverages for our guests or for our employees. And guests can choose to opt out of paying this. Some guests don't feel comfortable paying it. They don't think it's managed. They think there needs to be oversight. That's fine. We used to put a card down. Now we're not putting anything on our checks, talking about the labor of love with a picture of our staff. So I hope people know if they don't feel comfortable paying this, we still want you to come. We're not trying to be political. We're just trying to help our staff with benefits that unfortunately with our margins, we can't afford. And some people own their own business and say to me, Nancy, I don't want to pay the 3%. I pay all of my employees' medical expenses. I'm like, great, I can't afford to do that, but I totally understand you don't want to, and that's fine. That's fine. Everybody needs to do what they can. But again, it's a little bit of humanity. If you have a $20 check for lunch, we're talking, it's 60 cents, but it adds up.
Right.
It adds up to a lot of money for our staff.
And I want to inform people because we're coming close to the end and I have a couple more questions. That you and Jerry are both cyclists.
We
And
do. I was plugging my coffee cup here. Can you see what it says? Oh, it's backwards, I
I,
guess.
no, it isn't. It's cycle. It's Chef
It
Cycle.
says, yes.
And just to let you know, Chef Cycle benefits No Kid Hungry, which evolved out of Taste of the Nation. Um, and it takes care of children, maybe, more. I mean, you and Jerry riding, you couldn't do it this year. It's a 300-mile bike ride and you get sponsors, but
Yes.
you've raised over $50,000. Tell people more about the charity and what you do.
Sure. Jerry rode in 2015 before we opened the restaurant. It was just a very small group of riders, and they actually rode from New York to DC. And then in 2016, we opened Gunther, and we couldn't participate. But we knew that this is what we wanted to do. This was our give back to Baltimore, to our community, with the help of our guests, our city, and sponsors. It's a 300-mile bike ride, not a race, definitely not a race. It was in California in 2016, 17, and 18. No, 17, 18, and 19, we rode. In those 3 years, we had a big fundraiser at Gunther, and we raised $50,000 over last year. But for the 3 years, we've raised over $120,000. So we feel really proud about that. We have a wonderful event with lots of liquor sponsors who have money to give to great causes. Baltimore is a test city for No Kid Hungry. So the money does help residents right here in Baltimore. So we feel really, really proud of that. The year the Jerry rode from New York to D.C., they stopped at schools in Baltimore. They divided the chefs up, and there were kids ripping the gels off of someone's bike because they were hungry. So it's really sad with everything that's happening with COVID. I think one positive thing that can come out of this is people see this now. They see families, not just kids, lining up all over our country for food. So it's brought this problem to the forefront, along with so many other issues, which we can't even get into right now. But so it's really important to us that we're able to do this and raise this money. And it's good. We get in shape. We have fun. Jerry rides his bike down the stairs on television. He'll pretty much do anything for Chef Cycle. I get him up early. He doesn't get up early, but he'll get up early for Chef Cycle benefit PR things.
Right. For everyone, that is nokidhungry.org. And this happens, September is Hunger Action Month. So nokidhungry.org or the Maryland Food Bank, mdfoodbank.org. Reach in. You have $5. Put it out there. You know, let's make sure people are getting at least meals. The kids, you know, it's very important. Before I forget, we are here with Nancy Hart Trice of Gunther and Company Restaurant down in Brewers Hill. And you can find everything that's going on there at www.eatatgunthers.com. Gunther, not plural. Eat at Gunther.
No S.
And same as Twitter and Instagram, Eat at Gunther. Same thing on Facebook. I have 2 questions that I ask. The first question is, what was your epic culinary fail?
So I thought about this because I watched some of your other interviews.
Shows.
And I had a hard time thinking about one. And then I remembered the funniest story. So when I was the chef at Lincoln Center, I was the youngest chef in the company and the only woman executive chef in the company at the time. I was 22, I believe. And there was a very important luncheon at Avery Fisher Hall on the grand balcony outside of the main hall. And it was a plated luncheon where everything was assembled on the plate very artfully. And what we do for an event like that is we line up tables, we have teams of people, we put everything on, then we take rolling carts and we trays and we put all of these things on and we take them upstairs, and then before they go out we finish them with herbs and dressing and things like that. So Lincoln Center has, I think, 16 elevators, something like that. So you have to go down a hallway, up an elevator, here, there to get to the right area. So we're plating this lunch, everything's going out beautifully. I happen to know that like everybody from Lincoln Center Inc. is there. The vice president of Restaurant Associates is there. My executive chef above me, the corporate chef is there, making sure everything goes off perfectly. And all of a sudden, the servers come back. We're done. We're like, beautiful event. The servers come back and they're like, we need more. I'm like, what do you mean you need more? They're like, we don't have enough plates. One of the rolling racks went in between 2 harps. This is a true story. 2 harps, and nobody saw to bring it up. So luckily we went down and around and back, and we got these salads up and we sent them out. Okay, we did the best we could. The vice president comes over later to us and he says, beautiful lunch. He said, I did notice a slight pause. and we all laughed, but nobody else
Right.
did. So that was
Well,
my interesting culinary adventure.
yeah, there isn't anyone in the food business who hasn't had to drop back and punt, going, okay, this happened, let's go there.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a moment to think about what question didn't I ask that I should have, and I'm going to wrap up with the commercial, which is for Amatus Recovery Centers. Seek treatment for drug and alcohol addiction and co-occurring mental health disorders by calling Amatus Recovery Centers at 833-631-0525. So we're back to you, Nancy. What question didn't I ask you that I should have?
I don't know about a specific question. I think we kind of started having girl talk and got a little distracted, but I think people got a good sense of Gunther and what we do here. I hope people feel more comfortable to come out. Please wear a mask. That was one of the reasons why we had to close. One point that I'd like to make in connecting back to Chef Cycle and No Kid Hungry, you mentioned $5. $5 is 50 meals. They can take $1 and make it into 10 meals. And this has to do with government stuff that I know nothing about, but this is fact. So I feel very proud that we've, donated over 1 million meals. So your $1 can go far. And again, back to what we've learned, hopefully from COVID, good things that come out of this is humanity. If you have $1 or $5, it helps somebody else. So everybody doesn't have to have a lot of money to help other people. We all need to do what we can for each other, if it's just wearing a mask. Great. So there we are.
Great.
Thank you.
Nancy, continued success. May your 50% be filled for the rest of the time, and may we hopefully see some light at the end of the tunnel. But to remind people that, yes, you can go to the restaurant. Yes, you can sit on the patio. But also, they do catering, and they have the upcoming special menu for delivery. So, yes, everyone, eat at Gunther. Nancy, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, I just want to tell you about next week's guest, and it's a very special guest, and barring no difficulties, our guest is going to be coming to us from Jerusalem next week. That is Danielle Renaud from Peas, Love, and Carrots, a well-known blog. Instagram, she has 67,000 followers, and she has a cookbook out that came out July 31st called Peas, Love, and Carrots. It is gorgeous. It is a beautiful compendium of food, especially slanted to Ashkenazi and Sephardic foods, but just absolutely beautiful. Just to give you an idea, this book came out July 31st, and within the first 30 days, they sold 43,000 copies. So this is going to be a great show next week. Tune in. And as I said, this is Hunger Action Month. So you'll see floating up in the notes that you can donate to nokidhungry.org, mdfoodbank.org, any charity that helps feed people. It's the Action Month. Let's get $1 here, $5 there. We can do that. I also wanted to talk about opening of a restaurant called Friends and Family, which is down on Alisana Street. It used to be Sticky Rice. It is a plant-based breakfast all-day restaurant, and it opens on Monday, September 14th on Alisana. That's Friends and Family. They do have a couple dishes there for people like me who I'm not totally plant-based. As always, it is a pleasure to have you join us here, and you can find this video on Jmore Living on Facebook, jmoreliving.com. It'll be up on the YouTube channel. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at food@jmoreliving.com. You can find me on social media at Dara Cooks or Dining Dish. Right now, my prayers are with these people in California and Oregon, these terrible fires. You know, I feel frustrated. There's nothing that I can do. And it'll probably be something else, but whole families, it's horrible. So look and see if there's any type of charity you can donate to help these people. As always, we want you to stay safe, wear your mask. We appreciate when you share the show and help it grow. And as I always end the show, may your plates always, always remain full. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.